Vulnerability fosters good emotions and mental health. Vulnerability also is a sign of courage. We become more resilient and brave when we embrace who we truly are and what we are feeling. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast is a space for scientists who are honest and authentic or are working towards it. Join the vulnerable space by either sending an audio using the link on the show notes talking about your highs and lows as a scientist, or by contacting Sarah Nyakeri, aka New Biochemist, to schedule a chat. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast benefits both the listener and the one sharing. You can now rate this podcast on Spotify or put a review on Apple Podcasts or any other listening platform with a rating button. And to share your thoughts, feel free to send an audio message using the audio link, either using your name or anonymously, to be published on the following episodes of the Vulnerable Scientist podcasts. Are you wondering what I use to upload and store my website spaces? Host Pinnacle. I've been using it for over 2 years right now and it has never disappointed me. So host your website today using Host Pinnacle, cheap and affordable and reliable services. To start experiencing Host Pinnacle goodness, click on the link on the show notes and you will not regret your decision. Tell me about the exciting things, the highs.
Oh, I am fortunate enough to have quite a number of highs. That one I have a list. So I have to say, I have been able to experience quite a bit of highs in my life, in my journey, because of the surrounding mentorship and the people I've met along the way who've been very instrumental. So let's see. So I have to say, my husband is my biggest supporter and my biggest challenger in terms of he's always pushing me to do great things. It's like, you have to dream big, stop dreaming small, you have to dream big, you have to always. So he's always pushed me to be great, and he is my greatest mentor, my greatest friend, and my greatest cheerleader. Yeah. So because once we had the baby and we still kept pushing, he was he's been really instrumental, and my parents have been really instrumental. Okay, so even as I'm following my science career, in the background, my family has always been very, very supportive. So that said, one, the fact that I was able to get a fully funded studentship is not very many people who have access to it for a master's. I know people who are still struggling. So that for me was a very good high, because I was getting paid, I was getting a stipend, and they were paying my research. They were paying for my research. It's not every day you get that. So I was really, really grateful for that. That was a good high for me. And then during that time when I was doing my master's at Calro, there's one of the researchers who had gone to the University of Minnesota to do their PhD. And during that time, when I was doing my research, they came back. Yeah, and he had been funded by the Bolog. It's called a Bichel Bolog scholarship. So when he came back, he was also a wheat breeder, and he still is. We interacted quite a bit with him as we were working in the field. So he's called Dr. Godwin Masharia, and I got to learn of the opportunities that are out there. I mean, through him, I got, let's say, enlightened of the fact that there are things you can do outside your country, right? You don't have to just study here. When he came, he was an inspiration to so many of us. So he also let me know that there are opportunities for you to do fellowships and small short-term research opportunities in other places. Yeah, so you can actually expand your research outside of the confines of your country. So I went looking, I went searching, and I found an opportunity called the Bolog Leap Fellowship. So it's the Bolog Leadership Enhancement in Agricultural Program for Africans. And at the time, I was eligible because I was doing my master's, and they were looking for people who are studying. And what they did was they funded you for $20,000 to work with a mentor from the US, from a CG institute, and from your home institute. And for me, I'm like, oh my God, this is the perfect opportunity. I have a home mentor, Dr. Godwin, who had just come back. I knew people from CIMIT. I was working with Dr. Sridhar Bhavani at the time. And Dr. Godwin also had a mentor at the University of Minnesota. So, oh my God, I can work this. So this was like a week to the deadline. And I'm like, Daktari, I always call him Daktari, I want to apply for this. Will you support me? He's like, yes. And I approached Dr. Sridhar Bhavani. He's like, yes, I'll support you. So he connected me with his PhD mentor, his PhD supervisor called Dr. Jim Anderson, and we wrote the application. I remember I stayed up to like 3 p.m. on the last day writing that proposal, and I sent it to him and to the supervisor in the United States, and he looked at it and it was okay, and he signed, and I sent. So I sent and I applied. And I think like a month down the line, I was called for the interviews and I couldn't believe it. As in, I've applied for something that's international and I can actually go.
Minute.
Oh, that was one of my very, very fast highs. And it was amazing. It was amazing. It exposed me to working. So I went to the University of Minnesota actually for 6 months in the US. That was the first time I had to leave my family behind. It was tough. It was tough having to leave them behind.
Because you said you're this paranoid mother.
I am. I am super.
How was it for you leaving your kid behind?
It was tough. It was tough leaving my son and my husband. We were still we hadn't gotten married officially at the time. This was in 2014, so we were still sort of dating. Well, not dating, in a serious relationship, but we hadn't gotten married. So it was tough having to leave my son. I think he was like I think 6 or 5, 6, I think at the time. He had just started school. And so he stayed with my mom while I was away so that my husband could also work, at the time. But it was tough. I called him every single day when I was in the US. I think I missed him more than he missed me. Because when you go to the US, you're in a new country. Of course, you don't know how people live. You also don't want to be too overexcited and reaching out because in Kenya, in Africa, we are very open, so it's not something. And I went in summer, so everybody was hyped up and they were always going out, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, these are not things I'm used to doing. And I got lost. Trust me, the first day I arrived, I got lost. I went to campus on the first day, and on coming back to where I was living, I got lost. I think I took like 3 buses. I got lost. And then I didn't have internet. I started walking around. Thank God it was in summer because it was daylight until 10 o'clock in the night. Oh God. So I walked, and then I came to this lady's. The only thing I knew is that I live on Barrett Street. That's the only thing I knew. I knew if I could find myself on Barrett Street, I would identify the house because I was living with a lady. I'd rented a room with a lady. And so I found some ladies just outside talking. They were very elderly. So I'm like, okay, at least this ones I think I can approach and ask, where is Barrett Street? And they directed. So they looked for it on their map and they directed me. Oh my God, that was an experience. I got home at 10. Wow. But yes, new country, new things, you get to adapt. But I never got lost after that. So yeah, but that was a very good high for me because I also...
Sorry.
Yes?
I liked it that you said that when you go out, you're the one who misses people more than they miss you.
Oh, I missed them. It's true.
Yeah, it was a high because...
Yeah, because you see, you're in a new country. I mean, it was a high because I was able to apply for funding. I was able to work with with people together, collaborate with my mentors, put together a proposal that was accepted, and I was able to go and get exposed to new technologies. So I was able to get exposed to sequencing. At the time, genotyping by sequencing was a technique that was becoming very, very common, and I was able to do that with my populations that I was working on meat, and work with a different set of people and realize that you don't have to do science on a local scale. You have the platform to do it globally.
Yeah.
All you have to do is apply, go for it. It might be scary, but you can do it. So for me, it was kind of the opening, or it was the platform for me to get exposed to international science. And from then on, I don't think I've ever looked back. And I really liked it because it also gave me the opportunity to attend quite a number of international conferences. So through the Bolog Leap Fellowship, I have been able to attend, I think, 2 World Food Prize conferences in Illinois. The home of Bolog. Bolog is referred to as the father of the Green Revolution. And I went to his hometown. I've attended the World Food Prize celebrations and the conference twice through the funding of the Bolog Leap Fellowship. And I got to meet so many other people along the way, and that was amazing. So for me, it opened up the way for me. From then on, I've always wanted to just do things, I guess, global, if I might say. So that was one of my very first highs. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Another one?
Yes.
That was a good one.
It was exciting for me. Scary a bit because it was a new country, but it was definitely exciting. And so I'm very lucky to still even be in contact with Dr. Godwin Masharia, because he was also been very, very instrumental in my life. He's also been a mentor. So when I came back, after the 6 months, I completed my research work, wrote up my reports, and at the time, I was still also working as a research assistant in Carl Ronjoro, right? So we are still also doing the phenotyping, and one of the things that I really liked about Njoro, and we might not have been getting paid much, but the opportunities that it laid for me to get connected, to network, because every single year, there would be scientists from all over the world who would come there. You're there working with them in the fields. You get the opportunity to actually talk to them one-on-one. So that is something that I have to always be grateful for Njoro. I met so many scientists. Ravi Singh is a phenomenal scientist who is known in wheat. He's received several awards, and he used to come to Njoro every season. Julio, so many other scientists. Matt Rouse is is very good in wheat pathology, and I actually got to work with him. So I first met him in Njoro, and then when I went to the University of Minnesota in the USDA ARS lab, I got to work with him. So the one thing I have to say is the fact that I got exposed to so many international scientists was always a high for me, because it opened up doors. It really did. It opened up doors. So I have to mention that I can't remember exactly when I went for this conference, but there was a conference for scientists working in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation projects, and we had one of those projects running in Njoro. Okay, we had one of those projects running in Njoro, so I got the opportunity to actually attend. Myself and Godwin went to the UK. I can't remember which year it was. I honestly can't. But we went to the UK to attend one of those connection workshops. It was called a connection workshops, a BMGF connection workshop. We were at the Windsor Hotel. Can you imagine? Right next to the Windsor Castle.
Where?
Science is fun. You also get to travel. I know.
Yeah.
That was fun. So we went to the Windsor Castle, and I met so many people. I met Kathy Khan. Kathy Khan was the director for agricultural projects for the BMGF. It was amazing. It was exciting to meet her. I also met Dr. Jaga. At the time, he also was working in Becca. Jaga. He was still working in Becca, and I met him there. And I also met Professor Christopher Wawi. So Christopher Wawi is professor from the John Innes Center, and I met him at that workshop. And later on, he also came to Njoro, and I met him, and he always inspired me because, he's in John Innes. John Innes is like the best place to be in terms of plant science, one of the best institutions in the world to work in. So he really inspired me, to be honest, when I met him. So I met him, and then I went and Googled him. Okay, typical. And then I got to see, I know, I went and got to see all the work that he's doing in wheat, and he was working on wheat, right? And he actually got to come to Njoro and present to us on what he was doing. And the one thing that really, really struck me is that he could present and you would understand every single thing he said. Do you know, we never really get formal teaching on how to do presentations. You will literally have to learn that by yourself as a master's student. You put up presentations, you want to say everything that you've done. You end up having 30 slides and time runs out. But what I was so impressed with Dr. Cristobal is he presented, and he was working on trying to find genes that are responsible for wheat yields. And I literally understood everything, and I'm like, wow, I want to present like that one day. I do. And he was always a mentor, an inspiration to me to where I want to get to. I want to be this scientist who can communicate science to a layman, and he would understand. And yet he was getting to do such high-end science, So that was a high for me. I was really inspired by him. And at the time, so this is actually a low I forgot to say. And I didn't remember it until I talked about Professor Cristobal, because he also had a PhD that was in his lab at the time, right? But I couldn't take advantage of it because I still hadn't finished my master's, and my kids were still so young. I couldn't leave them for so long. This was a full-time PhD in the UK for like 4 years, and I really felt bad that I had to let that go. I did that one because Cristobal was such an inspiration to me. I'm like, oh my God, I would love to work with him, but I couldn't at the time. I hadn't finished, and my family was also still pretty young at the time. I had to consider them. I didn't want to leave them, at such a young age. So that is something that now I remember. I remember that one. That one I really felt bad letting go. I had to let go of it, but I felt it. That one I really did. But yes. So the reason I'm saying Cristobal is one of the meeting Dr. Cristobal was one of the highs for me, because I got to attend one of the very first workshops I attended at Becca was actually led by him and Dr. Oluwaseyi Shorinola. So Olu, allow me to just call him Olu because I've always called him Olu. He was also Cristobal's PhD student, and you could actually see how much he has grown from working with him, because Olu can also, if you've attended any of Olu's presentations, he's one of those people who can communicate science to anybody, and you'll get it. And he's brilliant. He's really brilliant at what he does, and he's such a great mentor. And so I got to attend one of those very first Becca workshops with them, and they were the one leading it. So it was Dr. Cristobal Wawi, Professor Brande Wolf, who's also from the John Innes, and then Dr. Olu as well. So the other really high for me was in 2017 actually, when I was attending the World Food Prize conferences in Illinois. I met Cristobal at one of the workshops. I met Cristobal at one of the workshops, and he mentioned that we are starting a bioinformatics community of practice. That's actually how I got to know about it, through networking, talking. You are actually having, I think you were having like the cheese rolls that you have at networking sessions in conferences. I remember not liking that cheese ball at all. I hate cheese. But the one thing that stuck with me is that I'm talking to Cristobal, and he mentioned that they are starting up a bioinformatics community of practice, and they've actually just started sending out applications. But unfortunately, how it works is that they are sending it to institutions within Africa. So they are sending it to institutions, and then institutions would nominate who to go for
Okay.
the fellowships. And I'm like, okay, this is amazing. I have to take advantage of this one. I'm like, thank you so much for letting me. Do you know who in Ilri or in Becca is in charge? He's like, yeah, you should talk to Jean Baka, who is the head of bioinformatics, and Dr. Wellington Ekaya. I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm definitely going to write them an email. That very night before I went to bed, I wrote an email to Joyce. So you remember I told you I met Joyce at one of the workshops.
Yeah.
Joyce Njuguna, who was the bioinformatician.
Yeah.
And she told me, yes, we've already sent out applications to institutions. In fact, we sent one out to Calro. And I'm like, they sent one out to Calro headquarters in Nairobi, and I'm in Joro. They will never even know about me. You know what I did? When I went back home, I wrote to Jean Baka and Wellington. I think I wrote them so many emails. I wrote them emails until they gave me an opportunity to apply. So I applied directly. I did not apply through an institution. I was so adamant. As in, this is something I really, really wanted. I want to know what bioinformatics is. I want to get formal training. That's what I was telling myself at the time. So I sent them like 3-4 emails, each of them. And like 2 days to the deadline, they sent me and told me, we thank you. We've decided to give you an opportunity to apply as an individual. And I applied. And I was like, thank you. Oh, that was a high for me. I didn't even think I would get the opportunity. Yes. I didn't even think I would get the opportunity to apply. That was a high. And to make it even more of a high, I was selected. I was selected to actually attend that bioinformatics COP. That was a huge high for me. Very big. It was so exciting because Jean Baka is now my boss. He's called JB. I call him JB. And Olu is a mentor. And it has opened up so many opportunities for me. I got to attend the plant genomics conference, the plant and animal genomic conference in 2019. No, in 2020, January, from the work that we did from the bioinformatics COP. So that was also one of my very, very highs in terms of presenting my work or the work that I'm involved in a worldwide platform. Because I remember even going to the US in 2014, I remember some of Dr. Jim Anderson's students saying, wow, I'm getting the opportunity to present at PAG. It's called PAG. And I'm like, what is PAG? They're like, it's only the biggest genomics conference you can get the opportunity to present in. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's nice. That was in 2014. I didn't even think I would ever get the opportunity. And here I am in 2020 after being a fellow and then working with Olu and JB and Cristobal and meeting. You remember Dr. Alan Vindines that I told you I met also? So all this came together and gave me the opportunity to present the work that we are doing on whole genome sequencing of lab and African yam bean at PAG. Wow, that was a high for me. I really enjoyed it. And it's a big, big conference. You go there and you get confused. What do you go? Where do you go? Where do you not go? It's huge. But it's also so exciting because you get to meet so many people. And I got to meet Joyce there, Joyce Njuguna, who was actually now working. You remember she was the bioinformatician when I went to Becca the first time. She was working the position I'm working in now. And I also got to meet Milka. You know Milka Kigoni, right?
Yes.
You've actually interviewed Milka. Yes. So it was such a high for me because I got to meet these ladies. They are everywhere in the world. They are living their dreams. They're such inspirations for me. They've been inspirations for me, and I got to meet them in PAG, and that was a good month for me. It was a good high for me at that time, and it also just served to inspire me not to give up in this journey of science. So mentorship is very, very important for me, and networking has been very, very key. it has opened up opportunities, so many of them actually. So
I can see that throughout your journey, you've been talking
Mhm.
about, how these people connect to this, and it's the resilience for me that,
Exactly.
stands out. Thank you for listening. You can now support this production through www.patreon.com/thevulnerable scientist.